Well, first of all, and we thought that we would do this introductory panel, as this will be your key trainers for the next training sessions. Well, this is an advocacy bootcamp, so things are going to be a bit heavy from now forward. And we thought that, well, it could be a good idea to start from the basics of advocacy. We have here Georgiana, Shay, and Jamie, three amazing women who all have led very successful campaigns in their respective fields. You're going to hear more on them during the training, how they did it and the more technicalities behind it. But I thought this could be like a very good opening to learn about their stories and all about their experiences on leading a campaign. And here it's going to be like a very good introductory also for you. What is campaigning? What are the basics of it? Because sometimes there is like a very much nuances going on to what is campaigning. You can have a electoral campaign, you can have a presidential campaign, but you can also have a very, very, very much activist campaign. And that is the specific focus that we're gonna do. Now, I have here, first of all, I have Georgiana. She's the Senior Advocacy and Campaign Officer at Girls on Rights. Well, an NGO that is very famous, first of all, for the work that they are doing across the world and across in many organizations that they're fighting child marriages. So we have her here to tell more about her initiative and campaign that she's doing as a project, as a Senior Advocacy and Campaign Officer there. But not just related to the Girls No Rights organization, but she also has worked a lot in Romania since her early age, where she even now, when she's based in London, she continues to be, a digital activist and also going back and continuing her activism journey back in her own country. Now, I'm going to leave the floor to Georgiana to share, first of all, how she got into campaigning, and then just to give like a taste and a flavor of what it takes to start, or just that ignition to start a campaign.
Thank you, Ivana, and hello, everyone. I'm really pleased to be here. And I wish that when I was your age, not so long ago, but still, there were more opportunities like this for me to meet fellow young women and adolescents who are interested in social change. Ivana, how many minutes do I have?
How many? But I would say keep it to 10 so we can go then with
10 is a lot, so yeah. I'll be even shorter.
Okay.
Maybe then it's easier for you to come after me and then we can have a conversation or leave more space for questions from you. I think that there's now no surprise about where I'm coming from. I know that that is one thing that is on many people's mind when they hear my accent, and I usually get that I'm from Spain or France, which always surprises me because I think I actually have a very strong Eastern European accent, but apparently sometimes it's just in my head. I left Romania when I finished high school. And I came to Leeds, actually, to study international relations. When I applied for university, I applied for 5 different courses: marketing and communication, law, international relations, business, and there was another one that was still in this area. I had no idea that this was something wild to do in the UCAS system. Somehow I got accepted to all of them, and then I had to choose one of them. It's like, what do I actually want to do? And I chose international relations because I thought that I would learn more about international development challenges, international human rights law, and all of these global crises that are overlapping and affect the world so intimately wherever we are. And the reason why I wanted to do that was because I saw it as a continuation of my journey in the Students' Council. When I was 15, I ran my first campaign to be elected the president of my high school's student council. I won it. So then I went to the next stage. There was this Sibiu, the place where I'm coming from, county council for students. So I thought, why not? I ran a campaign and I was elected. I was successful. And there I was at age 15, running the county council of students and having a team of over 30 other adolescents who were the leaders of their high school councils in their own places of study. It was a learning experience on fast forward because no one teaches you how to represent your fellow students' interests and needs. It was overwhelming, but it was also an opportunity to be extremely creative and chart a way forward that collectively with my colleagues, we thought that would move the needle in terms of our colleagues' rights, really. And not so much about rights, but so much about having our voices heard. So there was a lot of brainstorming about what were the things that we really wanted to bring forward to the education inspectorate at the county level, for example, or what were the issues in our high schools that we wanted to discuss with the directors of those high schools. There was a plethora of issues. And what was surprising for me was that we chose, for example, to focus on accessibility for students with mobility impairments. Although none of us were actually experiencing any mobility challenges. But when I was elected for this role of president of the county students' council, one of the other candidates that ran for president, the only other one, was an adolescent girl who was in a wheelchair. And she was actually elected to be vice president. And one thing that will stay with me forever is that at that point, one of the inspectors who was supporting the Students' Council approached her and her guardian to discuss the challenges that there might be in her being involved in this sort of activities, such as attending a regional meeting there's a very pyramidal structure of students' councils. You get from the high school to the county level, to the regional level, and then all the way to the national level. And there was this regional level meeting where, you guess it, you'd choose the president of the entire region from Transylvania, for example. That's where my Sibiu is situated. And this, our elected vice president was discouraged from actually attending this meeting because it would be very difficult for her to get there, and there wouldn't be the support that's necessary to facilitate her access. That has a word, and that's discrimination, and it's not even indirect discrimination. It's straightforward based on the disability that you have. I knew that it was wrong what happened. I didn't say anything. Nobody said anything then, and that was actually the last time that we saw that adolescent. Fast forward to a few months later, like I said, one of the priorities that we decided to focus on was on accessibility for students in high schools. We knew that it wouldn't be enough to just go to the labor inspectorate and say, the law says that you should have facilities for students to be able to access classrooms very easily, for example. But this is not happening. We needed data. So we used the power that we had, having a representative of each high school, to collect information about which high schools in our town actually had those accessibility facilities as the law provided. And what we found was that 90% of the high schools in our town did not respect the legislation. That was one of my first lessons, that while legal change is very important and it's a huge win when you achieve that, it's actually sometimes it's very difficult, but oftentimes it's the easiest part. The more difficult part is to make sure that that law is implemented and is implemented all the way down so that it actually makes a difference and it impacts individuals on a very personal level. And that legislative provision is also adequately budgeted. Because one of the reasons why these high schools and schools did not have these facilities is because they did not allocate the budget that was needed to build those ramps. We were successful in making a sort of brief that we then presented to the Labor Inspectorate, who then took it forward, and things changed. That was my first encounter with campaigning and with figuring out how to make, how to pursue social change. It was all extremely chaotic because no one had a methodology of how to follow. It was very much, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But a great learning exercise on how, if you want to effect change on a larger scale, so I didn't want this to happen just in my high school, but in all the high schools in my town, then you need to connect with other people that will be behind you in this endeavor. I continued to be part of the Students' Council all the way up until I finished high school. But somewhere along the way, I was introduced to the Association for Liberty and Equality of Gender. And that is an NGO that I've been part of for the last more than 10 years. I was introduced to this NGO by one of my friends who I was having a conversation with about gender. She started talking about gender equality and gender. And in Romanian, nouns have 3 genders: feminine, masculine, and neuter. So I was very confused about what she means by gender equality, just because of the language 10, 12 years ago was not there. So I was very intrigued what this is all about. And I attended a first meeting of this association. I started to think about how all of the things that I was doing in the Students' Council actually have different impacts for girls and for boys. So that's when I started to think about taking in consideration gender into the projects that I was initiating. My fellow colleagues earlier were talking about, finding that community and that group of young people, and not only that can push you forward, where you can find community, and that association has been that group for me. I went on to coordinate the Gender Equality Festival, group of volunteers, and then to take part into developing the program of the Gender Equality Festival, and thinking about all the issues that my classmates and I and people in my generation were interested. Comprehensive sexuality education, understanding how sexual and reproductive health and rights have evolved in the last 30 years in Romania, coming after a long period of a communist regime where women and girls did not have access to contraception methods, for example. I was pushing for understanding how we can create better intimate relationships. Of course, as an adolescent, that is something that you're interested in, and how we can have these sort of discussions in the classroom, discussions that go beyond the usual biology, anatomy classes. So this is how I started to combine these two worlds of my activism, the Students' Council, with my activism for gender equality. I ended up being engaged with various decision makers. So, like I said, it was the school inspectors, the school directors. Later on, I joined the Students' National Council. So I was in meetings with the Minister of Education to talk about education policies. And then when I was in the last year of my high school, I wanted to continue to do this, but at a more global level, at least to learn about it. And that's how I ended up at the University of Leeds. I liked it a lot. It was the best decision to come and study in the UK. It opened a lot of possibilities and opportunities for me. And it had me pay for my way forward, and think about how all of the things that I was working on are actually connected with what's happening at the international level. And now I've been working on as a human rights activist, and where I sit is really at understanding how international politics and law interact with national politics and law, and with what's happening at the local and at the personal level. So it's all these synergies that help me and my teams understand how we can devise effective strategies in order to advance our goals.
Thank you so much, Georgiana. And I think you're going to hear more specifically, I think, during the training, but it's amazing to see it's a shared journey and very similar to some extent to also my journey, maybe to some of the other journeys. So, and I feel like even when you start at the student council, those are the moments where you first pinpoint that, okay, I think I know the basics of campaigning, and I take from a small thing to maybe something bigger and something more straightforward to like what you believe in your activism. So thank you for sharing that. Now we continue with Shay and Janie. Both of them are co-directors of Level Up, which is a feminist group who are driving gender justice in the UK. You will hear a lot more about their experience and expertise in running campaigns, and like the very specific campaigns that they are doing as a group. I'll continue with Shay so she can share a bit of her work. Well, first of all, as a Black feminist organizer, a keen pop culture observer, and as I've noted of her, as the first GIF connoisseur.
Yeah, that's me. I love GIFs. Yeah.
You have a GIF for like every single.
I have used some memes for like 3 years.
That's a skill that you must have. It's amazing. So the floor is yours.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I'm Shay. I co-direct Level Up with Janie, my babe. Gosh, how did I come to campaigning? To be honest, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I left university. When I was at university, I got a degree in psychology. I started working with adolescents with mental health disorders. I thought I really wanted to work in that area. It got too much for me, a bit too real, a bit too much for me to hold. And so I went completely in the opposite direction and went and started working in the fashion industry, which I hated. I thought
you picked up tips. I mean,
babes.
Thanks. But I mean, what I did learn in the fashion industry was creativity, like moving on the fly, being innovative, things not having to stay stagnant, not having to stay still, and being able to find ways over barriers and problem solving. But that got a bit boring for me. So then I went and worked for a big NGO, a big charity, because I was like, well, I learned some really good skills in fashion, but I want to be able to apply them to something that means a bit more to me. But then being in the charity sector started to get really hard as well, because it can be very traditional. It can be very boundaried, not very creative. It's often trying to accommodate things as they are rather than trying to like shift systems, which is what I was a bit more interested in. So I found myself in the kind of feminist space working for a criminal justice charity that focused on women who were migrant women in the criminal justice system, so who were in prisons. And then through that, I kind of found my way to Level Up. Janie and the organization was being run by a woman, Paris, amazing Black feminist, who basically was just like, we need an online presence, a feminist online presence that is really prioritizing, mobilizing feminists and people who believe in gender justice, basically. And so we kind of started doing some work around that. That's when Level Up was doing the Love Island stuff, which I will go into a bit more in my workshop. So basically our focus is on identifying pop culture moments so that we can intervene to make change. Pop culture in particular is a really interesting site for change and a really good, what's the word, fuse, like and it's quick. So that's kind of what we do. And since we've been running Level Up together since 2020, a little while. We do all sorts of random things, random fun things. We fly planes over football matches to protest against gender-based violence. What else do we do? We do a bunch.
We got like diet pills and plastic surgery adverts taken off of ITV during a season of Love Island.
We're really loud. We're really vocal. We are not a charity, so we are a group of feminist campaigners. Our intention isn't about maintaining the status quo as it is. It's about building a world where people of all genders are loved and liberated. That's the world that we're working towards. And so, Janie, shall I pass it to you, Bev?
Yeah, sure.
Go for it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And if I can just add all of this, and she's the singer of a queer pop.
God.
No, she's
Europe.
Sure.
So, to be honest, we were so much looking for a performance during the festival. And we were always like, we're asking too much of Janie. But the next time, it's going to be an invitation.
Acapella punk band.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. Okay, so my name is Janie Starling. I co-direct Level Up with Shay. And the reason we co-direct a feminist organization together is because you really can't do anything by yourself. And especially when it comes to feminist campaigning, you need to build power among other women, under other kind of gender variant people who suffer from gender-based oppression in order to build power, because the reason that violence and oppression even happens is because the systems of power in our world, in our society, are completely unequal. And especially as young women, especially if you're, young women of color, if you're queer, all of the kind of intersections of oppression are stacked up against you. So in order to overturn them, we need a lot of us.
Yeah.
And I want to quote an amazing Black feminist organizer in the States, Mariam Kaba. She says that everything worth doing is done with other people. And I completely agree with it because it just makes it more fun.
Yeah.
So my kind of journey with gender justice campaigning, which I've done for the last 15 years, I think it just started in school and understanding that the world was not equal. Boys were treated differently to girls. My mum, I saw kind of my mum and dad's relationship and how gender played out in the home. And really things crystallized for me on a more systemic level when I got to university, because I studied human rights. And I noticed as part of our qualification, we were encouraged to take on a work placement, but that work placement wasn't paid often. It was, you were encouraged to take on an internship that was unpaid. And that wasn't something that I had the opportunity to do because I didn't have the financial background that said that I could work for free. Many of us don't. And I felt that actually the way that kind of rights are talked about often misses the crucial question of resources, because I was studying human rights and yet I didn't have the resources to do an unpaid internship at a human rights organization. How did that make sense? So I ended up doing my thesis on, is the UN contradicting its own labor rights principles through its unpaid internship scheme? And I found out that it was. So really, I think the key thing I want to say is that kind of the violence and discrimination that girls, that women face from men on an individual basis in our lives is often propped up by the bigger systems of patriarchy and government that are stacked against us. And so the reason that I think Level Up often, I mean, we do stuff around legal change, but we often focus on cultural change and cultural moments is because culture changes faster than the law, and often culture informs the laws that are created in society. And, you know, some of the things that happen, violence in particular happens at such a fast rate and such a fast speed that laws take kind of years to catch up and the damage has already been done. So, you know, for example, the Love Island campaign, which Shay will talk about in her session, is when we saw diet pill adverts being marketed to 3 million people every night on Love Island. And has anyone seen Love Island? Have you watched Love Island? Okay. Any Love Island fans, put your hand up. I need to know. I am a Love Island fan.
No judgment, like zero.
No judgment.
No judgment.
And this is the thing about culture, whether you like it or not, it is happening everywhere all the time. So whether you like Love Island or not, it's still being shown to 3 million people every night. And that is, you know, potentially 3 million girls who are being told they should put skinny sprinkles into a glass of water so they don't get hungry when they're starving themselves. So we thought that's kind of unethical and wrong. And so we launched a big campaign, which Shay will tell you all about. Similarly, you know, with football matches, there are several Premier League football players who have ongoing kind of rape cases, and they are still on the pitch, even while these criminal proceedings and civil proceedings in the States are going on. And there was a wall of silence around football because football is a business and no one wants to talk about the fact that these players are granted so much impunity. And that's often, again, how violence happens. So we thought, okay, how can we disrupt this wall of silence surrounding players who have ongoing rape proceedings? So we decided to fly a plane over a football match that said kick rapists off the pitch. And it meant that immediately we punctured the silence around it. And straight away, the Premier League came to have a meeting with us about what they could do. So our kind of message today is if you're kind of impatient
Like us,
for justice, like us,
yeah.
you know, find a friend to do it with. And also it's a good challenge, because if you can't convince your mate to do it, you're not really going to be able to convince anyone else that you're doing the right thing. So yeah, I think that's us.
Yeah, I also want to say really quickly that like a lot of us are drawn to this work because it's like deeply personal. It's driven by personal experiences or proximity to people who have experiences that have been difficult. And so it's not easy work. It's really hard work. I think it was Lauren who mentioned in her talk about taking care of yourself. That like care is such a huge, it's not a separate part of activism. It's a whole part of activism. Taking care of ourselves and each other whilst we do really difficult work has to be a key part of the work. It can't stand alone. It's also important to say that none of us are saying or doing anything new. Like it's really important to say that a lot of this work has been done and has come and has been done by generations before us who were able to move the needle but weren't able to push through. And so we kind of take it as our job. We're not taking the whole, all the work that there is to do on our backs. We're taking our tiny little piece and doing it together and doing what we can. And that's really what it's about. It's not really about putting a whole bunch of responsibility on yourself to change the world. Like that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to do what you can, where you can, and to do it with good people.
And to add on that, because you were talking about, you know, responsibilities and also the unpaid internships, which I've had my fair share also in international institutions, like it's the International Criminal Court, for example. Pay it forward. Your responsibilities is when you get into those institutions, into those organizations, into those teams that decide to hire an intern. to make sure that this custom of perpetuating unpaid work is not going to continue. It is, once you get into those spaces, remember the challenges that you've been through or those that your peers have been through, and make sure that this is not perpetuated. And I think that's so important. And you were talking about the fact that a lot of us are doing this because of our own lived experience. And I think it's important to say that is a lot and not all of us. You don't have to suffer the injustice in order to talk, to speak against that injustice. But when you start to have a platform and you're starting to think about the solution, it's crucial that those solutions are informed by the people that actually have lived those injustices. Make space for those people to also come forward and speak for themselves. That's so important.
And if I
was going to say one small thing. So also when it comes to kind of changing things in workplaces, who knows what a trade union is? Anyone? It's a trade union.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't have an exact definition.
Go on.
It's more just a union, what a group of people that you want to protect your rights within the workplace.
Yeah, so it's when go on, babe.
No.
It's when a group of people who kind of work either at the same place or in the same industry group together to change the system collectively. So actually something I missed, and thank you for reminding me, was actually one of my formative experiences as a campaigner was when I was working at a housing charity. And I was involved in the trade union because the charity were trying to cut people's wages. And we thought that it was really hypocritical for a charity that was campaigning on homelessness and housing externally to then cut the wages of some of its lowest paid staff. And a lot of my kind of confidence and understanding of strategy and tactics came from organizing within a trade union. So what I would always say to anyone, I mean, if you want to be a campaigner, it's great, but also as soon as you start working, please join a trade union. That's amazing.
It's the Students' Council for employees.
That's great. Okay, I think it's time to go to the workshops. We're gonna have a 10-minute break, but before we go, in just a couple of words, how to kickstart a campaign, or what it takes, or what you need to have. Just like,
I think a moment is always, so in my workshop, I'm going to talk about how you use like a moment that's happened in pop culture or in culture to kickstart a campaign and how you use it to like amplify your messages. And I think so being able to identify a moment that you can utilize.
perfect, a moment, remember.
Identify the issue that you want to see changed and break it down into something that's actually manageable for the capacity that you and your team have and the resources that you have. Ending child marriage is, it's huge. It's actually a global sustainable development objective that we're supposed to meet by 2030. Will we meet it? No. Have we made progress on many of the things that will bring us there? Yes. So it's so important that what we'll be talking about is, well, breaking it down. What does it mean to end child marriage? Talking about girls' health, girls' education, girls' empowerment, and so on. And to close it,
You need a strategy. You need a strategy because I think a lot of us feel really motivated to start a campaign. And it's quite emotional because it's something we care about, we feel angry about, we want to do something about it. And there's a lot of energy that goes into like launching the campaign, but that will not carry you through. You need to know exactly what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what resources you need to get there. And that is what will make you win.
perfect. Thank you so much. And I hope that this was like a very good session for you as well. We're gonna have a 10-minute break there so you can rest a bit, and then we're gonna assign you to the rooms. We're gonna be there, so don't leave the class without.
Thank you. That was so
Let's see how you.
You're brilliant. Hearing you guys talk. It's not the word, it's necessary. Yeah, how active you guys are. And I really wanted to ask, how did you guys meet?
We're in level up, actually. So I was working at a women's funder and
the woman who ran Level Up, Paris, I worked with her for something because she was like, I want to work with you so bad. I'm going to find some space for you. And Janie was already working in Level Up. And then when kind of that Paris kind of circled off, Janie and I decided that we would take over as directors together.